everybody, welcome back to another episode of How to Make Visual Novels with Dagger. Last time we were talking about the different types of visual novel styles and how to go about making them. But today, I think it'd be very fitting to go along with the different types of visual novel styles. We talk about the different writing styles that make up those visual novels. Now, there's a couple ways you can go about writing a visual novel. The two most frequently used ways are writing in a first-person perspective and a third-person perspective. Now, today we're going to learn about what writing in first-person and third-person really means. Now, this sounds like we're going to go back to high school English class, right? Seeing as how I have to use my BA in English somehow, we're doing this. Okay, so we're going to go with first-person because it's first. Now, first-person, as you can probably figure out, is written from the perspective of a character. You understand all of their thoughts, feelings, and you experience every moment of their life behind their eyes. Examples of this are, well, pretty much every visual novel in existence. But examples I like, and I keep referring to, are Higurashi as well as Katawa Shoujo. Now, what does it mean to write in a first-person perspective? Now, from a writing perspective, you kind of become an actor. You become this character. You're pretending to be this character because you're going through every bit of their day, every step of their life. You're doing everything that they're doing. But if you're not a writer, when you're just a player experiencing this game, you still become this character because, it's saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm going through this, I feel this. So even as a player, you still become that character. That character is now you. Especially in a game that has a lot of branching paths and choices. Now, I know I've been saying this, but you really do become that character. And even in something like Higurashi, where there are no branching paths or choices that change the narrative, it's still written in a first-person perspective, and you're experiencing different takes on the story, and you're experiencing different parts of the world through the eyes of different characters. You still become those characters, and you feel everything that they feel. I think the reason that first-person perspective writing in VNs is used pretty much universally is because, it builds a relationship between author in game and player in game that third-person really can't do. It's like when you're playing, for example, when you're playing a horror game, it's written in that first-person perspective. You feel the utter helplessness. You feel the terror when things go bump in the night. And when someone's just stalking you with a kitchen knife, wearing a really altered Captain Kirk mask. Or you're playing a coming of age story with romantic elements, along with branching paths, depending on your choices. Those are your choices. This character is you. You're pursuing this path. You are interested in this girl, and you want to see what she's like. You want to get to know her more. You want to get to understand how she became who she is. That kind of thing. First person is my favorite because you get a lot more detail. You get a lot more experience out of the game with that perspective. There's just so much more emotion. There's so much more action. There's so much more everything in that style. And like I was saying before, it's the author game and player game relationship is just at its peak with that style. It's perfect. It's pretty much why every single VN uses that style. It's just such an effective tool when it comes to telling a horror story, a romance story, a coming of age story. Pretty much any of these stories. It's super effective. So first person, very simple to do, but it is so deep when you really dive into it. Now we're going to get into third person, which is a little bit complicated, but I personally don't think the payoff is as powerful as first-person perspective. That's just me being biased, but I haven't seen too many visual novels utilize the third-person perspective very well. Now, in first person, you're behind the eyes of one character experiencing everything that they experience. But in a third-person perspective, you pretty much become an ethereal observer. You basically become an observer. You're just watching over everything, you're commenting on everything, and you're telling the story as how you see it or how you saw it. So basically, you're the hand of God hovering above. Now, while that's the gist of what third person does, there's 3 different types of third person. So let's check them out. We have third person objective, third person omniscient, and third person limited. So we'll start from the top. Third person objective, you're just the observer. You're watching everything, you're commenting on everything, and nothing at all affects you. You're just saying, oh, hey, this happened, and then this happened, and this person did this person did that, and oh man, it was crazy. And yeah, there you go. That's the story. Pretty much almost every book you read in English class in grammar school and high school is basically like that. Now, third person omniscient is just a little bit more complicated because hand of God hovering above. And I'm actually not really joking on that. It's pretty much true. You're a narrator that tells the whole story, and you know the thoughts and feelings of everybody. You know exactly what's going on. You know exactly what they're gonna do, how they feel, how they perceive things, and how they're gonna interact with everybody. So, yeah, I'm not joking. You're basically God in that sense. You don't have control over everybody, but you see everything. So while you can't control what the characters do, you can control what you see the characters do. Now, while third person omniscient does that, I find it a little boring. In the sense that I've read a lot of stories, even classic literature stories, where, where the author tries the third person objective and third person omniscient, perspective, and it's not written well. Their stories aren't written well because third person omniscient and even third person objective, to me it feels like it's encouraging you to just tell the story rather than show the story. Well, anybody could tell a story. He did this, she did that, he went over there, she had done this, but you get the idea. It's just a lot of he said, she said, he did this, he did that kind of thing. And it's just telling you what they're doing. It's not showing you how they're doing it or showing you what they're doing. And I find that very bad storytelling. Now we're going to go back to first person perspective. Yeah, you could say, oh, I did this, I did that, and you could just be telling it. But in first person perspective, you have a lot more freedom. You have a lot more of everything to show, how the protagonist is feeling, how they're going to do things. And you can use a lot of good language to describe that. You don't have to just tell it. You can show it through action. You can show it through experience. You can show it through a lot of different ways. Now you can do that in third person, but it's a lot more difficult, I find. But in third person objective and omniscient, since you're this otherworldly observer that's watching over everything, especially in omniscient where you see everything and you know everything, it gets a little, it just encourages to tell a lot of things. Yeah, you can use some language. You could show what a character's doing, how they're upset, how they're happy, do all this stuff. Yeah, that's true, but to me, it just doesn't have the same type of author game player game relationship that first person does, because you are not the character. You're just observing the character, and to me, that's not too much fun. That's not really fun. I love role playing. I love being an actor. I love becoming this one character. I don't want to look to see what this character's doing. I want to be that character. I want to do that. That's why we play games, right? That's why we play role-playing games and stuff, right? Because we want to escape this world. We want to become someone else. We want to do the things that you normally can't do in the real world. You want to try to being another person. And then the last third-person perspective is third-person limited. Now, unlike objective or omniscient, where you're observing all these characters and you're reporting about all their different types of feelings, in limited, it tells the story from the viewpoint of just one character. So it's basically first person, but it's not first person. So, like in first person, you're this character and you're saying I, and in the third person limited is more like he, she, that kind of thing. Now, I personally like third person limited because it's not, because it brings the focus down to one character or you can jump perspectives between other different characters. and the story doesn't get muddled or confusing. Everything is on point. It's on focus. And just like in first person, in third person limited, you can use good language and good writing where you're showing how the story is unfolding. You're not telling how the story is unfolding. You know what I mean? Now, while I don't really write in a third person limited, I do like how it's close to first person, and you still have a lot of potential to play around with that. You have a lot of potential to show your story. Now, I gave you some examples of how, well, I can't really give you examples of first person writing because pretty much every single visual novel utilizes first person. But there are some, some visual novel games out there with third person elements. The most popular ones are 999, Zero Escape 999. But, that's another story for another time. Then there's Umineko. And then Song of Saya has elements of third person in there too. Now in Umineko and Saya's case, they're used very well. And that's why they're popular. That's why they're revered. And that's why people still talk about them today, because the writing is great and the stories are great. And the authors do such a great way of presenting you the world that they created rather than just telling you outright about the world they created. So that's pretty much a snapshot of the different types of perspectives you can use to write your visual novel. So I think it'd be very fitting that next time we talk about how to use first-person writing and how we use, let's say something like third-person omniscient or third-person limited. So this way you have an idea of what writing style would be good for you, for your visual novel when you start it. So next time we're going to pretend we're in creative writing class in high school, and I'm going to teach you guys how to use first-person perspective and third-person effectively for your story, and you can figure out which type of writing style you'd like to use for your visual novel or which one you think is best. Thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next lesson.